Hey gang, it's Fed here, co-founder and owner of Azalea Music Group here in Nashville. I'm coming to you from the control room of Azalea Studios, and I've been talking to people a lot about mastering lately. And what I found really interesting is a lot of what's being said about mastering really isn't all that accurate. So I thought I'd take a few minutes here to informally go over some of what I call the myths of mastering and discuss them with you. So, my name is Fet, and if you don't know me, I've been in this business a long time. I'm an independent producer and engineer here in Nashville. I've been here for quite a while. Some of you may know me through my wife, Nancy Moran. She's also my partner in crime and business here at Azalea Music Group. But I'm also the host of FET's Ninja Mastering, which is an online program all about mastering. So that's partially why I'm talking about the subject today. So, myth number one. I feel like I should be doing some kind of a countdown with a drum kit and a crash cymbal or something. But myth number one of mastering, for me anyway, is you can compete in today's music market without mastering. Well, that might have been true 10, 15 years ago, but if you're an independent, you're basically competing with the entire marketplace out there nowadays. And it used to be that the major labels and the major label artists all had their records and their other releases mastered by professional mastering engineers at mastering houses, but the independents didn't really and could kind of get away with that. Well, now there's a much more even playing field than there's ever been before. And if your music is not mastered and doesn't have that polished professional pro sound, you're not going to be able to rise above the fray. So that's the first myth I've been hearing, is that you don't need mastering at all. Myth number two, the drum roll please. Myth number two is that you can only get a great mastered sound with expensive mastering specific gear. Once again, in the past, that might have been true. People used to invest tens of thousands of dollars just in the gear at mastering studios. But as we know from the revolution that's happened in virtually all kinds of music gear over the last 10, 15 years, you can get really super high quality stuff now, emulated in software, as well as even the hardware stuff has come down radically in price over the years. And you don't necessarily have to use gear that's specifically designed for mastering to do mastering. Obviously, there's a convenience there, and there's a reason that some gear is designed specifically for the purpose, but it doesn't exclude you from doing mastering with non-mastering gear, quote unquote. Myth number three. You can only get a great mastered sound in a specially designed mastering studio. Well, there is such a thing as a mastering studio, and there's a lot of great ones in the world. And there's a lot of great mastering engineers who work in mastering studios. But like everything else in the music production business, mastering has moved very much in-house over the last 5 to 15 years. So just as the revolution has taken place in project studios that have exploded across the planet and sort of provided that buffer in between what they call commercial studios and home studios, well, a very similar thing is happening with mastering now. In fact, a lot of the top mastering engineers in the world actually work from home now. Now, it doesn't mean that the studios they have at home are bad or they're not well designed or not well sound treated, but they don't have to have a separate facility in a separate building, maybe tacked on somehow to a major label's facility or something like that in order to get great mastered sound. So you can get a great mastered sound just about anywhere in the proper environment nowadays. Myth number four. You can only get a great mastered sound from a specially trained mastering engineer. Once again, there are a lot of great mastering engineers out there, and I've learned from some of the best in the business, and the ones that are really good are truly outstanding and kind of special. Just like great mixing engineers or recording engineers or artists or songwriters. But that doesn't mean that you have to be a certified mastering engineer in order to do mastering nowadays. There are a lot more qualified mastering engineers out there than ever, and those people have learned the skills that mastering engineers used to keep very close to their chest, And mastering as a skill is definitely becoming much more widespread than it used to be. You don't have to be a professionally trained mastering engineer in order to do really good sounding mastering. Myth number 5. This is one of my absolute favorites. You cannot do mastering at home. We've already talked a little bit about that. By yourself or with your own gear. I have seen some pretty phenomenal, quote, home studios, unquote, lately, and the gear in those studios will rival anything in a professional facility. As I said before, you can learn these skills yourself, and if you have the proper environment and you know what you're doing, you can also do mastering at home now on your own material. Another one of my favorites, myth number 6, mastering simply means making everything louder, as in turning it up to 11 or more. Well, somehow or other, this myth got started out there that mastering is basically taking a perfectly finished recording and making it super duper loud so it can be competitive. Well, in reality, there's a lot of super loud, overly loud stuff out there. But making things as loud as possible, and I mean perception of loud, not necessarily in terms of actual numbers, can hurt a recording and really suck the life out of the music if it's not done right. But mastering is a lot more than working with volume levels. It has to do with working with tone, with sequencing things, with spacing the pace of a project, with encoding, with authoring, with dithering, all sorts of other things that don't happen during the mixing process. So mastering is a lot more than making things as loud as you can, and a lot of times making things as loud as you can will actually hurt them significantly in the marketplace. And last but not least, myth number 7. To get a great mastered sound, all you need is some cool gear and a little time. All right, so I've talked about how mastering has changed a lot and the gear's a lot cheaper and you can learn the skills and all the other things, but that doesn't mean you just go out and, quote, buy a piece of mastering software and sit down in your home studio and you're suddenly mastering a day later. There's still a process involved and a lot of learning curve. It just is now available to a lot more people than it used to be. So what do you need if it's not just a bunch of gear and a little time? I call it the MPS Mastering Framework. That's something that I've developed in my approach to mastering. So let's talk about what MPS Mastering Framework is all about. First of all, the M in MPS stands for a mindset. One of the great things about mastering engineers is their mindset. They look at the music at a completely different level and from a completely different angle than the person who wrote it, the person who recorded it, and the person who mixed it. I've said before, if recording is the 1-foot level and mixing is the 10-foot level, then mastering is the 100-foot level of looking at the music. And the 9 times out of 10, the only thing a mastering engineer is working with is the final stereo mix. So there's no chance to go back into the mix and change the balance of a single part on a track. They have to look at the music and listen to the music as the end listener would. And that's a huge part of mastering well, is the mastering mindset that comes from, historically anyway, mastering engineers. The next part of the MPS framework, the P, stands for process. Mastering engineers definitely have a set of steps in a very specific order that they go through in order to get the most sound out of a mix. They want to take that mix and not mangle the mix or ruin the mix or turn it into something else. They want to take that mix and make it even more so. They want to take what it is and make it even more of that. And that requires a process combined with the mindset in order to do it really well. And finally, the S in MPS stands for skills. These are the techniques that you apply to your gear so that you can do the mastering process well. So there are very interesting tricks, techniques, tips, that kind of thing that mastering engineers know about in order to get the most out of mastering a mix. And those are the skills in the MPS Mastering Framework. And the MPS Framework is what I teach in my FETS Ninja Mastering online program, which is taught entirely in video. So, don't let anyone tell you that you can't learn to master your own recordings. Now, through my Ninja Mastering program, I can teach you how to do the things that mastering engineers do from the mindset perspective, from the process perspective, and from the skills perspective. The MPS Mastering Framework. So, if you're interested in learning more about Ninja Mastering, you can go directly to www.ninjamastering.com. And oh, by the way, class starts this Thursday, the 28th of January. That's just a few days away, and there are just a few seats left in the class. We've got quite a lively group of people already signed up, and I know it's going to be a lot of fun. I would love to see you in class.